All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sports Card Madness. This is LZ, and I am here with Nick. And today we have an interesting guest. We are switching it up today. Today on the show, we have Patrick Davis, who is a full-time artist and a sketch card artist for some of the biggest brands in the hobby industry. Brands that you've all heard of. Patrick creates one of a kind cards for those brands. So we wanted him on the show today. We wanted to get into it with him. We want to hear about his story, how these cards are made, and really just kind of dive into this area. So Patrick, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Very cool to meet you, Patrick. I know we were joking before we got on that man, I'm like the worst artist in the world. I think like I'm still in the stick figure territory. So what you do is just it's absolutely amazing to me. Like the ability to draw.
I hear that a lot from a lot of people at conventions in particular. I can't draw a stick figure, but yeah, like we were talking about, it's all about practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool.
I mean, just to get to the whole, like, just how amazed Nick and I are with a talent that you have, and it's a talent that you've built up over the years. Just a bit of a background story on how we even found Patrick and got him on the show.
Mm.
So, a past couple episodes, we've been talking a bit more about this isn't just sports cards, right? We had an episode around how collecting the goats, and the goats just aren't sports, and there's some pop culture. We mentioned Harry Potter, we mentioned Star Wars, we mentioned Stranger Things, all these different kind of more pop culture collections that you can get into. And one night I went down the rabbit hole with Stranger Things, and I was looking at 2018 top Stranger Things cards on eBay, and I came across this card that was just so much different than anything else on eBay. And I clicked on it, and it was this sketch of Nancy from Stranger Things, if any of you have seen the show. And it's her in the upside down world, and she's trapped. And this card, like, it just hit me in a different sense. It just hit me in a different way. Like, there was like some crazy emotion and feeling around this card that I don't get from even staring at, we talk a lot about 86 Flair, like the Michael Jordans and things like that. This was just a different feeling. So I ended up buying the card because I thought it was so cool. And right after I bought it, I'm like, the cool thing about these cards is the artist actually signs the back. So you know what? I gotta reach out to this artist, and I need to tell him the impact that this card had on me. It sounds corny, but it really isn't. Like, it really had an impact. So I reached out to Patrick on Instagram, and I just said, "Hey, I gotta let you know, this thing hit me in a whole a whole different way." So and it was great. You were awesome, Patrick. You got back to me and you were telling me about the card and everything. And then probably 2 weeks go by, and I was telling Nick about the card, and I'm like, Nick, I think we got to have Patrick on. We got to have somebody like this on. We've never even brought up these sketch cards before. Let's get him on. Let's have him talking about just artistry and sketch cards and what that all means. So, Patrick, thank you for having an impact on me in the collectible hobby. It really opened my eyes to something completely different.
I, hey, I'm glad that you found it, that you liked it enough to buy it off of eBay. I think you
Yeah, it
said
was
you found it
eBay.
on.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, it's great seeing things like that pop up. I mean, what was it, 6, 7 years later,
Yeah.
and that people still enjoy it. That was fairly early in my artistic journey, I guess.
Mhm.
So I was still getting a sense of my style, uh, the way that I like to use colors, things like that. And yes, it's great to hear from people. It's maybe once every other month, every few months. Somebody will pop into my Instagram or Facebook and say, "Hey, I found this," or "I got it out of a pack," and Really like it. Thanks. And I love hearing that. Um, I'm part of a ton of Facebook groups that either they're case breakers or they're collectors and they're breaking boxes and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I'll get tagged in something and I'll be able to watch somebody open up one of my sketch cards live, which is a trip to say
Oh
the
yeah.
least.
So cool.
Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
Uh, and they pop up all over the world, Australia, Japan, uh, you name it, UK.
Mm,
They're all over the place. So
mm.
they're my cards are more well traveled than I am by a long shot. So it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, Stranger Things, definitely one of my top sets to have worked on. I think, pun intended, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of fun with that one.
That's great. Well, you
So
mentioned, I mean, Stranger Things again was like 7 years ago. Let's talk about just more of your origin story, like how you got into when you became an artist, when you knew you could draw, when you knew you had those skills, when you got interested in kind of these. We'll get into it, like the Star Wars. There's many that you get involved in. So just walk us through how did it all start for you?
um, yeah, I guess back before even being an artist, I was a collector first. Like any kid, grew up collecting, baseball cards, a little bit of basketball here and there. Um, it was Ghostbusters, Ninja Turtles kid growing up, so they had cards for those, um, and was have been a lifelong Star Wars fan. But for a long time there, there really weren't until like the early '90s or so. There were trading cards coming out. There weren't the books, the movies, all that stuff. It was pretty quiet there. And I want to say in '93 was when Top started releasing what they call Star Wars Galaxy, and that's almost entirely new artwork. The first three series of that, at least, were the ones that I was really heavy into collecting. They have some like the behind the scenes artwork from the guys that worked on the original movie, like Ralph McQuarrie's concept art, things like that. But then you've got big name artists that maybe weren't as big, you know, uh, back in the early '90s. Um, I know Jay Lee's in there. All sorts of really just art that you would never seen for Star Wars, like not movie posters or anything like that. Just really cool artwork. Um, and immediately gravitated towards it. I was 10 years old and collected those sets. They were doing the wide vision cards, like the letterbox versions of the movies. Um, see, Decipher, which is a card company that's not around anymore. They had a Magic the Gathering like card game that you could collect. It's all over that. Um,
And that was
and
it was like a Star Wars type Magic the Gathering type game.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
they had
Yeah.
I think they had Star Trek too,
Mm.
and I'm trying to think of what else was in there was under their umbrella, but yeah, yeah, they had it up until probably about 2002, I want to say. But yeah, I've still got my collection. I mean, it's back here on the bookcase behind me.
Yeah, for
Um,
those on audio, he's got pretty awesome setup here. Looks like ton of paint and markers. He's got a cool signed Star Wars poster, lots of stuff. I see like a Ghostbusters logo, a bunch of cool
oh
things
yeah,
behind him. Awesome.
yeah, yeah. I am definitely a collector of many things,
So
but yeah.
you grew up loving Star Wars from way back when you were a kid, and you followed up Star Wars pretty much, especially your early adult life. And then the first opportunity you get is to sketch cards for Star Wars. Like
Pretty much. Pretty
what?
much.
What are the
Yeah.
chances? That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. It
Wow.
was absolutely, um, yeah, dream come true is an understatement for sure.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and it's been a blast getting to do the work on that and um, seeing myself evolve as an artist through that. So
yeah.
Excellent.
yeah.
So, Patrick, all right, coming
Hmm.
from somebody who can't draw whatsoever, like at all, I'm really curious about how this sketch process works. So, do they kind of tell you some parameters or like this is kind of the measurements, this is what we're looking for, have fun? Or is it more open-ended, like just show me what you got and you start with stick figures and make them better, or you just try to like, I don't know, draw the best version you can like 100 times? Like, how does the whole process work?
It varies depending on the company that you're working with. Um, since we're talking Star Wars with tops, yes, there are a lot of parameters. Um, they want to see, a good number of samples from you before you even start.
Mm.
So you'll have, you know, um, a little portfolio put together, email it to them, and then they might not even reply. You might get a reply, when they're ready to go with the set a year later. Say,
Wow.
you know, hey, you've been tapped for this set. Um, just let us know how many you want. This is what the brief is all about. There are uh, probably a good dozen or so standard rules, I would say, with tops overall, regardless of whether it's Ninja Turtles or Walking Dead, Star Wars. Um, they don't want you. Um, there's like that iconic shot of like Han Solo with the blaster, aimed straight at the camera. You can't draw stuff like that. They don't want
Oh.
no weapons within I think it's like 45 degrees of the
Well,
viewer of the card.
okay,
Um,
hold on. I'm
Oh.
sorry. I got to ask about this. So you'll get a brief, which is pretty normal for like an
yes.
artistic endeavor. You'll get a brief for a commercial or something like that. So you get a brief with some rough, like what they're going to do. But then you actually get specific instructions that say no weapons at 45-degree angles. Probably, no, he can't have like a joint in his mouth or something like that, I imagine. Like
Right.
what? So do you
Right.
get stuff like that? That's crazy.
Yeah. Especially with the films and things, they only want you drawn um, as close to what it looks like on film as possible.
Mhm.
No deleted scenes, no, um, you know, uh, behind the scenes photos of you can't have Peter Mayhew, who is Chewbacca, without the Chewbacca mask on. None of that. After Disney took over with Star Wars, they didn't want to see Princess Leia in the metal bikini from Return of the Jedi. You could do that, you know, Leia from Return of the Jedi, but it had to be from about here up. You know,
Okay.
um,
Oh my God.
so
Come on.
um,
That's iconic.
I'm
there's
sorry. I'm
right.
sorry. That's ridiculous.
Um,
Like, uh,
there's
wow.
some funny rules in there. Gina Carano and what's his name, who was on SNL, and he got in a lot of trouble. Um, he was in The Mandalorian, but either way, the two of them are off the list. You can't draw them. Um, you know, uh, like doing Darth Vader in bright pink is kind of out.
Really?
I think it actually specifically says, no Aqua Kylo Ren is the example they'll
Wow.
use.
Very specific.
Um, so
That's
yeah,
cool.
they obviously
Yeah.
like if there's lighting on the character or something like that in a particular scene, then yeah, that's appropriate to the
Hmm.
movie. That's all good. They do uh, specifically these days, they're looking for photorealism, and that can have a lot of kind of tricky. uh, implications depending on who's interpreting that. But basically, they're not looking for cartoons. They're not, you know, no Lego versions, no,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, comic, Marvel comic book interpretations. Um, so it has to be, your own style, but as close to the movie as you can get it, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
So
Um,
we're talking here, we're focusing a lot on Star Wars and some of the rules that they have. But you also mentioned this one that you're doing for charity, Island Dreams. Then I
yeah,
thought you said Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Walking Dead. What other ones? I mean, that's enough on its own. Any other ones that you're
yeah.
doing?
So we talked about Stranger Things too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, and so I think that has been everything that I've done with Tops. Um, and I want to say it's been 7 or 8 different sets of Star Wars, and then one each of the other properties there. I got in on The Walking Dead, the very last set that they did that had sketches. I was really pumped, and then they never did another Walking Dead set again.
Mm.
So kind of a bummer, but it's just the way it is.
So what
Um,
about so let's talk Star Wars because this is
yeah, yeah,
Nick's
this
passion.
this is my jam.
yes,
And again, for those on audio, I'm looking at your shirt here, and it's got like a vertical line
oh
from
yeah,
every movie, I think. Yeah, looks like it,
yeah,
which is pretty
yeah.
awesome. So,
Yeah,
and you've got a lot of Star Wars stuff there.
Oh, he's
And
zooming in for everybody.
oh, damn, that's
there you
awesome.
go.
Nice.
So, yeah, LZ and I talk about we did this episode on goats versus prospects, right? And for sports, that's your Michael Jordan, your Tiger Woods, your Muhammad
Yeah.
Ali, those are your goats, right? And then your prospects are your CJ Strouds, your Victor Wembanyama, whatever. But then LZ actually kind of jogged my head and he made a good point. And he's like, well, this applies to like shows and movies. And then we were like, all right, well,
Mhm.
when it comes to movies and shows, what's a goat? Is Stranger Things a goat yet? Or not? Or are they still a prospect or somewhere in the middle? We had like a debate about that, right?
Mhm.
So for Star Wars, I guess I already know the answer to this question, but do you consider that a goat? Right, that's number one, and then I'm gonna have to follow up
Yes.
with yeah. All right, so there you go. There's the answer to that question.
Yeah.
But
Obvious.
let's just I'm just gonna say something crazy, right? So let's say that you could sit down with like any of the characters from Star Wars right now, and Tops is like, hey, we're gonna do a set on X movie or X scene or X dude. What would you be like the most excited about to do? Like, what could they like? What scene or what character or whatever would like make you like fling out of bed and draw that thing in like 5 minutes?
Oh man. I don't think that they have plans to do an Andor set as of yet, based on the show. Uh, I really loved that series. That was a really good one for me. Um,
Wow, that's
so
that's
I,
a controversial opinion, I think.
you're right. Yeah, I know that there were a lot of people that felt that it dragged a little bit, or this and that. Um, for me, like that was like peak Star Wars. That was
Mm.
awesome.
Whoa.
Absolutely loved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you drawing a scene
Um,
from Andor would like rock your world.
yeah.
Okay.
I did a couple for the last set that I did do. Um, but I was drawing so that was Masterwork 2022, and the episodes were coming out as I was drawing it, and my deadline was like the next day, and like, it's like, oh man, I really need to get that scene in there,
Wow.
so
So you're like watching these like the night before and to get a
yeah.
flavor of what's going on, and then you have to produce like the next day.
Oh no, no, I mean that
Oh,
was my own choice.
oh, okay. You're putting your own your own
Oh,
No,
deadlines
yeah,
on
okay.
it.
A
there have been
self-induced deadline.
Yeah.
like, gosh, I mean, when I did, so my second set with Tops was the Last Jedi Series 2,
Hmm.
and the movie had been released, but we didn't, it wasn't on DVD, it wasn't on demand anywhere, anything like that. So you got kind of like crappy pirated versions that you know I would never ever look up online. That would be terrible. Um, but fuzzy pictures, things that you're trying to draw off of, or from memory, um, that was tricky. Um, but yeah, in most cases, I've got the ability to, pause the movie on a certain scene and cherry pick the exact right frame that I want to draw from and go from there. Um, but yeah, generally no. We get plenty of time to absorb the material and all that good stuff.
So do you ever, this is something now that you've talked about the different restrictions, like, drawing Darth Vader with like a pink ice cream cone and like, yeah, whatever, like dancing or something like that. Have you ever had a drawing that you worked really hard on and you're like, this is going to be awesome. And you send it to Tops or whatever. And you're like, they're just like, nah, man, nope, sorry. Like redo it. Do you ever get anything like rejected?
Uh, yes, and I think that just comes with it's part of the territory. Uh, art is obviously subjective, and I still don't know exactly how it works in terms of who's at Tops is looking at the cards and making a green light or a red light kind of decision. From what I understand, if it doesn't make it, they just get shredded.
Hmm.
Um, they don't go into a pack. I don't know if they go into a trash or literally sent through a shredder. Um, but yeah, so that the Star Wars The Last Jedi set. Um, I reached out because like I think I didn't get the number of expected artist returns back from Tops that I had been planning on. There was one less card that I gotten back from them. And the artist returns, sorry, that's a new term to throw out there.
Yeah.
Um, so say we do 30 cards, we usually get 10% back. So you get 3 cards back uh, to be able to sell on our own or
Oh.
keep them, whatever you want to do. They're yours. Um, it's part of our compensation for doing
Hmm.
the card sets. Um, so yeah, I gotten kind of like one less than I'd been expecting, and I reached out to them. I was like, hey, not a super big deal, but just kind of wanted to see what was up with that. And yeah, they did let me know that I had a fairly high number of rejections, and they weren't able to give me an exact number. But the feedback, was my facial likenesses was kind of not up to par. Um, and I do recall doing some, uh, obviously Carrie Fisher had just passed away. I'd really wanted to do kind of a tribute to her. So I had an image of Carrie Fisher. It was kind of her face that kind of faded into like a star background. Um, so obviously not something that was directly from the film.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of more of an interpretation, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose. And I think that kind of stuff, particularly with actors that have passed away, they're a little bit more sensitive
Hmm.
with.
Sure.
So, um, so I think certain things like that, you know, might get have like a higher tendency to get rejected, or
Mm-hmm.
um, we don't ever get anything sent back to us unless it's the artist returns.
Okay.
The stuff that's been approved and it's now ours to do with
Did
as we
that
will.
did that Carrie Fisher card get returned to you or no? That one got
No,
destroyed. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They were
So
probably trying to protect that one a bit more because of the sensitivity of it. Yeah.
yeah,
That makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think there were. I know, like looking back at it now, like I'll look through. I scan images of all my cards, and I'll look back through those and I'll be like, yeah, not my best work,
Hmm.
But again, that was 6 months after I had done my very first card set.
I do want to you had mentioned it before. We talk a lot in the sports card hobby. There's a big thing around one of ones. There's only one of these that exists, and people chase these one of ones. And you mentioned it before. These sketch cards, there is only one in existence. And I'd even claim, I want to see if you agree with this, Patrick. There are certain one of ones that actually will like use, maybe close to the same image, but it's not exactly the same, or maybe it has a different piece of a jersey in the card, so therefore it's a one of one. But with these sketch cards, it's like a fingerprint. There really is only one. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
At least with the vast majority of them.
Mm.
So I mentioned doing Fallout a little while back. The weird thing with that set was Bethesda didn't want to go through the approval process to do, I think I had taken 80 cards, something like that, because I love Fallout. And they didn't want to go through each and every last one of them. So they had us create a template and then we were going to reproduce as long as they were approved. We did 10 each, and we could do little variations like, the background color could be a different, shade of blue. So
yeah.
If you look on eBay right now, I think there's probably a handful of my Fallout cards up there.
Oh, cool.
And you might notice, like, so there's a couple that look really similar. They're still hand done. They're not printed by any means. But they have certain little differences with them, just by inherent value of being done by hand.
So for those that prospect, Fallout might be a good space to go. That show, that is a great show.
I'm looking at some of these cards now. They are on eBay right here. Dynamite Fallout sketch card by Patrick Davis.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it's like a zombie.
So check out the show, everybody. First off, it's a great show, and I think it's going to become it's already a big hit. It's going to become a real big hit. So check out Patrick's cards. go find them. I think it's a good thing to prospect. But just to stay on that topic for the audience that is interested in what we're talking about today and wants to get into this, even me, right? I got introduced to this a couple weeks ago, thanks to you. Like, where would you recommend, like, myself or somebody getting into this start? Is there a good set that maybe is underappreciated or undervalued, or you just really love that you think would be a good set to get into and start collecting?
The sketch cards within Star Wars and Topps have become like a little bit less. Like it used to be, certain hobby boxes you were guaranteed to get an autograph and a sketch. I want to say a lot of like the around Rogue One, there were a lot of boxes that were like that. You're guaranteed one of each. Wow. And right now it's a lot of you're guaranteed to get at least an autograph and maybe one or two sketches per case.
That's a big difference.
And it's not always exact or anything. So it's a little harder to say right now exactly.
It's a good point you make, though. You're basically saying, like, go for something don't go for a case that's like you may get a sketch card, you may get an autograph. Like going for something that's like guaranteed to, or on average to, something like that. That's what you want to go for. I'd recommend that across sport. Every box you open, like I'll look at Stranger Things stuff, and if there's no, because that's like my secret, I'm like totally like going down that rabbit hole now. If I'm looking at Stranger Things, it's like, does it have a sketch card? Does it have the autos, especially season 1, right? That's got like the crazy ones. So, I mean, it's good advice you're giving them. Just like go after stuff with inserts like that.
And it should be stuff that you love. We talk a lot about this, right? So, Nick, you should be going after Star Wars is what you should be going after.
Should, man.
You really should. You need to reach out to Patrick, and he needs to educate you offline about some of this Star Wars stuff.
I'm so torn about Star Wars. Like, I want to go with the OG stuff from the 80s. It's so pricey. My God, it's crazy.
Yeah,
So yeah, now and then I look at the newer stuff. Some of that's even pricey, just like the new stuff they're running off the line.
sure.
So you're right. I need a little powwow with Patrick. We're gonna strategize on how to get me some
I got you.
cool sketch cards, or maybe I'll have Patrick
Yeah,
just draw me something cool, and maybe he
there
can
we
draw me
go.
Darth Vader with a snow cone dancing, as long as I promise never to make it public, or
Right.
something like that.
I mean, as long as it's not on a top card, I'll draw you whatever you want
There we
within
go.
reason. You know, but
Love it.
gosh, I mean, if you're just looking for original artwork,
Mhm.
it's stuff like the Island Dreams, like I was telling you about earlier. That's definitely got fantastic, bang for your buck.
Mhm.
Um, and it's great because you're going to get a mix of artists. You're guaranteed to get, I want to say, at least every year, it's been a minimum of 3 sketch cards per pack.
Okay,
And they're
cool.
all, each
Yeah.
one is a different artist. He mixes them up. Um, and it's been all the way up to like 5 or 6 up in a pack. And I want to say they're only like $25. They're not
And that
expensive.
goes to charity, you said,
Um,
right? Too? That's
yes,
charity.
sir.
Yeah,
So
there you
Yes,
go.
that's,
sir.
that's even better.
You feel good
Right.
about it while
Yeah.
you're doing it.
Hmm.
All right,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
I wanted to talk about Fanatics a little bit. You've obviously been
Mm.
in this Star Wars and Tops game for a little bit. So obviously Fanatics owns Tops, right? Have you seen anything change since they bought Tops? Have got more aggressive with sketch cards, want more sketch cards, or has it not changed at all? Like, what do you think is going to happen too?
Um, it has changed. How to be diplomatic about this. I don't know that I've seen a change for the better.
Mm,
It, definitely the opposite,
okay.
unfortunately. Um, you know, uh, I think one of the things that has come around since Fanatics has taken over is that we've seen a little bit more um, influence from Disney in terms of what we as artists are allowed to do, period. Not just on the Star Wars cards, but as artists in general.
Hmm.
Um, so, you know, um, again, I'm trying to be have
It's
some
fine.
tact about this
Yeah,
here,
go ahead, man. It's all
Yeah.
good.
but also
Yeah.
speak plainly. Like Elsie, we were talking on the phone the other day, and like
Mm.
I'm not gonna you know trash a somebody that's given me work before, at least not too much. But
Whenever there's
I've
whenever there's big change that occurs in any company, right? There's gonna be like this wave of trying to figure out you just a lot logistics and all that. So like with anything, whenever a company gets purchased, there's always some disruption. So that's common. That's going to happen. But I think the hope is once things settle down that maybe things will get better. I mean, I know they have these grand plans of trying to grow 10x the hobby. You hear that all the time, 10x, 10x, 10x. Um, so yeah, well, hopefully things settle down for you and you get other
yeah.
opportunities coming up. So yeah.
So the one big change, and it's
Mm,
it's really shaken up the artist community quite a bit, um, is that there's been a decision handed down that, I spoke about those artist returns
yeah.
earlier. Um, those are no more with Topps Star Wars at the very
Oh.
least. I don't know about other Topps products,
Hmm.
um, or anything else having to do with Disney. Um, there has been a good deal of um, abuse, I would say. Like, somehow, some way, like there are blank sketch cards out on eBay for sale.
I
Um,
think I've s-
you
I
know,
think I've seen them actually. I
right,
have.
and they're
Yeah.
obviously not supposed to be there
No.
by any means,
Hmm.
and
Mm.
um, yeah. So I mean, like that gives you, um, you know, uh, some people claim to just collect them, blank sketch cards from a set. I don't know who's going to pay $200 for a blank card,
Mm.
but a lot of people are buying them to give to. you know, somebody who may not necessarily have been on that set,
Right.
um, and who may not know, so like those maybe ridiculous rules, but
Hmm.
still they're Topps' rules about what they do and don't want to see on the card.
Hmm.
Um, I recall at some point, there was a SpongeBob SquarePants with a lightsaber that looked like a spatula.
Oh boy.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously not on brand
Mm,
for Star Wars.
yeah.
Um, and some other images that a little less silly, a little more on the risque side,
Hmm.
that I'm sure that they were none too happy about. So
Yeah.
um, I'm sure that that has played a very large role
I'm
in the
sure.
decision to say,
Yes.
hey, you guys
Yep.
aren't getting these anymore.
Hmm.
Um,
Just too much
what
abuse happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and what one would have kind of hoped for in a situation like that is where you would see like the reimbursement per card,
Hmm.
submitted to Topps, go up considerably because the sales of our artist proofs are where we, kind of make our bread and butter.
Yeah.
Um, and it just, there was an increase.
Hmm.
I would argue at least as somebody that does this full time, that it was not nearly enough. Um,
Mm.
I can't spend 2-3 weeks, and I'm slow at making my artwork. I'll fully admit it. Um,
It's very
but
detailed, so it makes sense that it
mhm.
Mhm.
takes you a while. Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean there are some folks that can do even better, much higher level of detail
Hmm.
even faster than that.
Wow.
Um, Everybody's kind of got their own thing, of course. Um, but yeah, I mean, kind of no matter how I've been able to slice it, it's just not something that I can make worth my time.
Hmm.
So for the time being, I've stepped away from at least Tops.
Well,
Um,
that's a real
yeah,
shame.
it is. Yeah.
Hopefully Fanatics and Tops is listening. Patrick is a real talent. I've seen a lot of his work, and please try to take care of your artists because they're putting out some incredible work.
Yeah, I
I'll
agree.
say that. I'll just say that. But we want to be respectful of your time, Patrick, because we're getting
Of
close
course.
to it here. We always end it with a question. It's usually this kind of coffee question. Do you have coffee with anybody? Blah blah. We're gonna switch it up a little bit for you though. All right,
So
because we usually ask about an athlete, but I will include that just in case you shock us and say that. But if you could meet any athlete, actor, celebrity, dead, alive, or fictional, who would it be and why? Have a cup of coffee with, have a dinner with. Who would it be?
it'd have to be Carrie Fisher,
Ooh, okay.
Wow.
so obviously, dearly departed
Hmm.
Princess Leia, of course. Um, yeah, I just missed the opportunity. It was coming up. She wound up canceling kind of last minute, and then a couple of months later, I think she
Oh,
passed on
Oh,
us.
that
So
sucks.
yeah,
that's
and
brutal.
she's a major icon, obviously,
She is.
Star Wars.
Hmm.
Um,
Star Wars and
but
other movies too, right?
yeah,
She did a lot. Yeah.
yes, she did. Yeah.
Hmm.
Right
Um,
on. It's a good choice. I
but
like it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My other bucket celebrity I've already met, so you guys probably can't really see, back here, right here, big old bookcase full of
Yeah.
Stephen King.
Oh, okay.
So I did get to meet him about 4 years ago. So he would have been my other person, but
Okay.
check
Nice.
I
on
like
that
it.
one.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Good choices, Patrick. All right. So,
yeah.
where can people find you?
Oh,
Where can
right.
they get in touch with you? Maybe they want you to draw something cool for them, or maybe they just want to like learn more about what you do. Like, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram, Facebook. I am on Whatnot occasionally. Um, so best place to go is probably just so Instagram is easy, at P Davis. 1125. And I have a link tree on there that's got my connections to just about everything else.
Awesome.
My I guess my personal company name is Davis Arts Fandoms Illustrated. Um, so on Facebook, if you were to type in Davis Arts FI for the Fandoms Illustrated piece, that'll bring you to my Facebook page, which is interconnected as Instagram and Facebook are these days. Um, but yeah, either one of those will get you, to a place that you can message me.
Perfect.
I'll probably be doing a nice big Star Wars Day show on Whatnot on May the 4th, of
Okay.
course.
Oh,
All right.
Um, so look
coming
for
up.
me there.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Excellent.
But yeah,
Great. Well,
well,
thank you for joining us, Patrick. This is really cool.
gentlemen, I appreciate it.
It's cool to see the other side of this world. Like I just never understood how it worked with the blank sketch cards and things like that. So
Mm.
you definitely illuminated that for me. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you,
absolutely.
Patrick.
It's been my pleasure. Yeah,
All
you
right.
guys have been a pleasure to talk to. So
Okay.
hit me up anytime.
You got
We
it.
will.
All right,
All right.
everyone. That's the pod.
Bye, everybody.